What is up everyone, and welcome to a video that I've wanted to do for such a long time. Today I'm here on my own, there's nobody else in the house, and I've decided to seize this opportunity to make as much noise as I want without worrying about upsetting anyone or waking the baby. So I have dug out my VHS Hifi late 80s, early 90s Dolby Surround Pro-Logic setup to show you guys what I've got and to just generally give a little bit of a demonstration, have a chat about the system, share some of my knowledge, some of my memories and some of my opinions and thoughts, and then maybe discuss later on in the video some of the plans I have to hopefully integrate some of this stuff into my new setup in the new house. So, without further ado, I hope you guys all enjoy this video full of retro audio-video goodness and some nice Dolby Surround stuff, because not a lot of people talk about the old school Dolby Surround. So here we go, let's take a look. So before we get started, I just want to mention a quick little thing to get it out of the way. We are going to be talking about VHS as our source format. This is pretty obvious because it's late 80s, early 90s, VHS dominated at this time, and I still absolutely love the format. I don't have a problem with it. I still have a big tape collection. It's part of my childhood. I grew up with VHS. We didn't buy a DVD player until the very last moment, until the time where VHS was properly dead. So I've got vivid memories of just buying tapes and renting tapes and playing tapes and recording tapes. And yeah, VHS I think is going to be a big part of my life forever, because I don't think I'm going to be able to part with at least some of my tapes anytime soon, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, that's VHS out of the way. Take it for what it is. We are talking about retro stuff here, so if you've got a problem with VHS, then this probably is not the video for you. But I thought I'd mention that because people can get a little bit wound up in the comments these days. I know 4K and 1080p and Blu-ray and everything is the latest stuff, but yeah, not so much here. So one other thing that I'd like to mention before we take a look at the equipment is I do not have this set up all the time. I've literally just set this up for the sole purpose of recording this video, so that's why the cabling is a bit messy and everything is everywhere. And this is actually the first time that I've set all of this stuff up together, so that's pretty cool. So let's take a look at what we have. First off, at the bottom here we have my Akai VSF510, I believe that's the model number. This is a machine that I went out of my way to buy about 4 or 5 years ago because my original VCR decided to pack in. This is a much better unit. I wanted to get something older, so this is from 1990 or 1991, I believe, so it's a very nice time period. Anything older can get quite unreliable, especially like top loaders and early 80s stuff get really unreliable. And anything newer gets that sort of modern look where the tape load is in the middle of the machine, it's got the screen underneath, and it's got that conventional VCR look to it. So I really do like the design of this one. I also like the era, and it has a very nice remote that has a lot of functionality and gives you a lot of flexibility with the machine. Now this is a Hi-Fi VCR, of course. Hi-Fi is essential if you want to be using Dolby Pro-Logic and Dolby Surround, but to be perfectly honest, most VCRs from the mid-90s and up are all Hi-Fi, even the lowest end ones. It's only something that you really have to look into if you're buying an earlier model like this one. And anything from the 80s will be branded Hi-Fi in the model name probably, because it was such a big feature when it first came out. But Hi-Fi sound is much better than standard VHS sound. It's so far superior. It sounds fantastic. I'm a massive fan of how it sounds, and yeah, you guys will hopefully get a good idea when I demonstrate it in a little bit. And of course it allows Dolby Surround tapes to actually play back and get decoded properly by a surround processor in Dolby Surround. So that is the Akai machine. I do need to open it up and clean the heads. It does suffer with a little bit of, it loses tracking of its Hi-Fi sound, so it flips between Hi-Fi and standard, which is kind of annoying, but it doesn't get too bad once the tape's been playing for a while. I just need to clean the heads a little bit, so I'll pop that open and do that when I move probably at some point before I set that up on the new setup. But anyway, that is my machine. I do like it a lot. Next up we have my amplifier. This is a Memorex SA404S. This is just a standard sort of late 80s, I believe this is around 1987 to 1989, stereo integrated amplifier with all your basic features. So you've got an auxiliary CD input, phono input, tape monitor, a little bit of an EQ, so you've got low and high, as well as balance control, loudness control, tape monitoring control, all that kind of thing. It's a very standard amplifier and something that a lot of hi-fi audiophile geeks wouldn't touch. But I personally feel quite attached to this sort of equipment because it's this sort of thing that was still knocking around a lot when I was growing up, when I was very young. The sort of equipment that people around here were still using, and yeah, I find it a very nice unit. I find it's got a lot of punch for the speakers that I use it with. It's currently being used with my Technics SB3030 speakers. I've had this set up now for probably about 3 or 4 years in my room, and I do enjoy using it. It hasn't put a foot wrong. At the top of the stack we have a 12-band graphic EQ. This is a Memorex EQ302. Now, even though it's the same make as my amp, it's from a totally different product line. This is also late 80s, but I believe the 302 range was a little lower end. I'm only guessing because it seems lower quality. It doesn't look quite as nice, and the switches are feeling a little cheaper and whatnot. But that's just an EQ. The reason I have that is because these 3 items here I got from the same place. I got given them, which I'm extremely grateful for, and they do have a fantastic history. And they are connected to me in quite a historic way, which is nice. Something that I'm not going to touch on in this video because we're going to be doing a lot of talking, but probably something that I'll chat about in either a vlog or something further down the line when I set this stuff up in the new house or something. I'll tell you guys exactly where this lot came from and the history behind it. But yeah, I have the EQ set up because I got it with this system, and I thought it would be quite nice to set it up just to give it a try and see what it's like. So it's a 12-band graphic EQ. It's got your input and output and also tape monitors. It's very easy to use. Unfortunately, my model, these faders, all the frequency control faders are meant to light up red. Mine don't. They did when I first got it, but obviously it's showing its age now. They don't light up anymore. They sometimes do when you first turn it on. But yeah, I'm gonna have to open it up and see if it's an easy fix. I doubt it is. I really doubt it is, especially all this, cheaper gear where it's gonna be all just integrated stuff that's impossible to get to, and solder joins and all that kind of thing. But yeah, hopefully I can sort that out in the future. But I've just got an EQ on here. It's kind of nice for the flexibility. I don't know whether that'll make it into the final setup, but yeah, it's just there for fun. So coming down to the star of the show, this is the Marantz SP50 surround sound processor, or should I say Dolby Pro-Logic processor. This is definitely a very exciting piece of kit. Now, what is this? This is, like I said, a Dolby Pro-Logic processor. What is Dolby Pro-Logic? Pro-Logic is basically Dolby Surround, so the first generation of Dolby Surround, which is basically Dolby Stereo from theatres, rebranded as Dolby Surround, so it's easier for consumers to understand the difference between stereo and surround. We'll talk about that more in a minute, actually. It's basically Dolby Surround, but on a single chip. So all of the stereo matrix decoding is done on one single chip, apart from the rear speaker delay. That's on a separate chip. But that's what Pro-Logic brought to the table. So a very cheap and effective way of integrating at-home living room surround sound processing at a low cost. That's exactly what this thing does. So of course this is first generation Dolby Surround or Dolby Pro-Logic. So we are talking front left, front right, center and surround. That is it. 4 channels of audio. That is how it stands. Now originally this was Dolby Stereo in theaters, as I said. Dolby Stereo in theaters is not to be confused with just normal stereo sound. Dolby Stereo is exactly the same. You get your front left, your front right, your center and your surround channels. Now in terms of subwoofers, normally in these setups in the late 80s, early 90s, people would just have very beefy front, left and right speakers that would handle all of the low frequencies, and that's what I've got. Subwoofers didn't really become a thing until a little bit later on in these sorts of setups. However, I believe there are processors out there that have a subwoofer output, not as a dedicated discrete surround channel, but all it'll do is route all of the low frequencies from the front, left and right, so say everything below 120 Hertz, and route that to the subwoofer output. This Marantz unit doesn't have that, and I'm glad it doesn't, because that's an added bells and whistles feature that is not supported in the original Dolby spec. So the original Dolby spec actually sends all your low frequencies to your front, left and right. Now, in terms of my setup, I have this amplifier driving the front, left and right speakers. Now, you may be thinking, how am I driving the rear speakers? Well, this Marantz SP50, as well as being a processor, it also drives the surround speakers, which is quite a common feature for these sorts of pieces of kit back then. So this actually has a built-in amplifier to drive 2 surround speakers. It's not separated surround, it's not surround left and right, it's just 2 speakers doing 1 single surround channel. That's what Dolby was like back in the day, and you know, that was pretty damn epic. So you had your stereo spectrum from the front 2 speakers and a surround channel. It's surprisingly effective, and yeah, still sounds brilliant even by today's standards. And this is coming from someone that has a 5.1 setup and, you know, uses it extensively. So yeah, I still love the original Dolby Surround and Dolby Pro-Logic format. So one thing that I don't have in this setup is a center speaker, but a center speaker is not necessary for this sort of setup. You can have it if you want to have it, and it's fully supported by the SP50, and it's part of the Dolby spec. It's a separate track. It's a matrix track on one of the stereo tracks. Obviously, you've got left and right. All of this is done through left and right phono out of the VCR into the surround sound processor, and then it uses matrix decoding to gain the information for surround channel and center channel from that original signal. But I don't use a center speaker, so all I do is tell my processor with a switch on the back to use phantom center, and that basically sends the center channel to the left and right equally at a plus 3 dB level over the left and right signal, the standard stereo left and right signal. So that is a very nice way to listen to your films. I would like to add another one of these amplifiers and a nice retro center speaker at some point, but that won't come for quite a while. There is also one other option for center speaker on this particular processor, the SP50. I believe lots of them do this. This actually allows you to send a dedicated center channel signal, but if your center speaker is not up to par with your stereo speakers, it will actually allow you to send the low frequency portion of your center speaker surround channel to your left and right, and it will send all of the mid and highs to your center speaker. Now, why would you want this, you're asking? Well, because a lot of people back in the day would use their TV as their center speaker. Now, your TV is naturally not going to have as good a sound as your hi-fi stereo speakers, so your TV won't be able to handle all that low frequencies. That would then mean that you'd have a terrible difference in sound between your surround setup and your center channel speaker, so all your dialogue would sound pretty rubbish in comparison to all of the music and effects and things like that. So by sending the low frequencies of your center channel to the left and right speakers, that means that the television speaker or the below par speaker that you're using for your center speaker doesn't get strained in any kind of way with unnecessary low frequencies, and you still get nice rounded low frequencies because it's actually coming through speakers that can handle it. So this is a fantastic option. You get 3 options in terms of a center channel, and of course you can send discrete center channel audio from the actual track straight to your center speaker if you're lucky enough to have a center speaker, which is good. But anyway, other features include this does have a built-in non-Dolby option, so it's basically its own built-in matrixing option, which means that anything that is not Dolby Pro-Logic compatible or Dolby Surround compatible, the processor will try and decode it and put it to the right speakers. And yeah, it's basically the same as what you see today. It adds a bit of reverb to the rear speakers and it basically sounds like crap. But luckily, the majority of VHS tapes do support Dolby in some way, shape or form, so it sounds fantastic. It's also got a couple of different effects. You've got either Hall or Matrix. Hall is very reverby, and Matrix is Matrix. So yeah, that's what it's like, but I keep it permanently on the Dolby Pro-Logic option. Another couple of cool things that the SP50 does, it gives you the volume control separated for your surround speakers. So this controls the amplifier output of your surround. This controls the pre-amplifier output of your center channel if you're lucky enough to have one, like I said. Volume over here is your input, your left and right input, and this is your overall output. So this is the knob you want to use to adjust all of your speakers at the same time, which is handy. It also has a test tone button, which I'll show you later, which is handy for system testing and system calibration. And that is about it for the surround processor. Now, if you're still not sure what a surround processor is, then it's basically like an AV receiver, but without the V portion and without receiving all of your inputs. So this has one RCA input. So, well, to obviously the red and the white for stereo. It takes that input, that comes out of wherever you want it to come from, of course, pretty much your VHS, and it then routes everything where it's meant to go. It's not an AV receiver, it's a surround sound processor, and it's a damn cool piece of kit. So that is that. Hope you guys like the gear. Just as a quick little mention before I show you the speakers, I want to show you how I've got everything hooked up. So we're going straight out of the VCR into the EQ. So the EQ is EQing the overall sound. Not necessary, but like I said, fun to play around with. We're then coming out of the EQ into the surround sound processor, out of the surround sound processor through active outputs, so amplified outputs into my rear speakers. That is getting the surround channel, the dedicated surround channel that is of course decoded through the Dolby Matrix. And then we are also coming out of here at a pre-amplifier stage for the front, left and right speakers, using this amplifier for the front, left and right speakers, which gives a nice bit of punchy, beefy sound. So that is the setup. Let me show you the speakers. For this, we're going to go a little bit handheld so I can show you what we're doing. So this amp is driving the front speakers, like I said, and here they are. I'm using the Technics SB3030 speakers. Lovely set of speakers, really nice. I'll be using these to listen to my turntable and stuff with this amplifier in the new place, so it'll be ideal. I'll have this set up for both my turntable and also have it set up to use with the surround stuff if I so desire with the VHS. Obviously I'll have modern surround hooked up as well for like Blu-ray and gaming and stuff, but this will be great as it is. So these are very nice 1983 I believe, or 1981 or 1983. Anyway, they sound very nice. Three-way design, inverted dust cap, which is pretty cool. I love the look of these speakers. They look great. I hope they last me a very long time because I'm impressed by the sound. Unfortunately, for the rear speakers, I'm stuck with a pair of cheapo computer speakers for now. I mean, they're wooden, they're not bad, they're two-way, they've got a little woofer and a tweeter in them, but they are cheap speakers. So if anyone does know of any speakers, preferably Technics, because I'd like to keep it matching. If anyone knows of any nice Technics speakers that are small enough to use as surround speakers, you know, nothing bigger than like, nothing bigger than a 6-inch driver, I guess. I'd really like to hear what you think would be nice as my rear surround channels, with plenty of kick to them, because these don't have enough kick. Obviously they're just computer speakers, but they're only there for testing and they sound surprisingly good for what they are. So what I'm going to do is fire everything up. I do have various tapes here. Unfortunately, I'm not going to go era specific on the tapes, because it's a little bit confusing to do it that way. I've just chosen films that I know have really good Dolby Surround support on VHS. So we're going to start with the Matrix, because it sounds fantastic. I'm going to hook everything up, and in terms of video, we're not worried about video in this, but I'm just going to use my projector screen for video reference. I just wanted to see that it was in sync and everything. And yeah, obviously this is just a stereo microphone. You're not going to be able to hear the surround, but I'll be able to demonstrate the features to you guys anyway. So I'm going to hook up the projector and let's take a listen. So I apologize guys, this is going to be a bit of a rough video with camera work and low light and stuff like that, but you know what, this is definitely right up my street in terms of video making. It's got to be rough like this from time to time. So to boot all this stuff up, we're going to go in order of the signal path, obviously, to avoid pops and crackles. So let's power on our VCR, then we're going to power on our equalizer, followed by our surround processor, followed by our amplifier for the front speakers. Now, like I said, this knob here controls overall volume of the system, all outputs from the surround processor, which is great. So far, I've had this amplifier on halfway for the front speakers, which seems right about nice, and this knob on sort of 3/4 for the surround speaker output. Now, of course, what I could do is just roll that amp back or roll that amp forward more to control the front speakers. That's basically, you know, self-explanatory, and I could get more scope out of this if I turn the input volume up and whatnot. But yeah, this has been working really well. In terms of EQ at the moment, I do have the low and the mid, or the bass and the treble, so the low and high, turned up a little bit on the amp for the front speakers, just to get a little bit of grunt out of these Technics speakers, because in my opinion, all of these older three-way speakers need that little bit of extra grunt in the low and high. I'm not a fan of what I call the consumer swoop or the consumer scoop in terms of EQing most of my stuff, but for this older stuff I do like a bit of a dip in the mids or a boost in the lows and the highs. In terms of the EQ for the overall system, it's flat at the moment, but we will demonstrate it later. So let's start off by not playing the movie. Let's start off by playing the test tone. So all you do to play the test tone is press the button. So you guys aren't going to be able to tell what speakers that's coming out of, so I may try and point, but what it's doing is it's going from left, centre, right, surround. It's going through the 4 channels, but of course because I don't have centre hooked up, it's doing a left, left and right, right, surround. So it's a very, very handy test tone. So here we go. Left, centre, right, surround. And that just allows you to check everything, make sure your levels are matching and everything's in order. So very cool. You can hear the difference in quality for the surround speakers. They sound awful. But yeah, that's the test tone. Now, there's a switch on the back of this processor. If I switch it to dedicated center channel, you guys will notice a big difference in the test tone. Now, at the moment, I'm not sure if you can hear that, but that thing I was talking about where it sends low frequencies to the front, left and right speakers, check it out. So that quieter one you heard was because it's center speaker, but throwing low frequencies to the left and right. I believe it's this button you press in order to get a dedicated center. Yeah, that's pretty much dedicated center. This is an old amp, so there's a little bit of leaking, and there's always going to be leaking anyway, but that's pretty cool. Dolby, it's on Dolby at the moment. We have our everything set up here, pretty happy. Okay, so we might as well play the tape, and I can try and show you guys what this sounds like. So let's play a little bit of the Matrix. I don't know where we are in the film, but you'll be able to see that the film will eventually pop up on the projector. There we go. As you can see, it's the Oracle scene at the moment. So what I'm going to do is fast forward or rewind to a place in the film where there's some action, so I can show you the differences between the speakers. Okay, so I forgot to flip that switch back on the back. So now we are actually sending center vocals properly.
How much like it? Was it the same cat?
So if I sit in the middle...
I'm not sure. Switch, hang up. What is it?
Deja vu is usually a glitch in the Matrix. It happens when they change something.
So as you guys can hear, vocals are very, very clear.
Let's go.
And it sounds absolutely fantastic. Now, I've killed the front channels. You guys can hear that the rear channels are working, or the rear channel, I should say. Turning it down a little bit. Getting the fronts in as well.
That's what they changed. We're trapped. There's no way out.
You can't. Give me your phone.
Now, I've just flipped the center channel speaker as if I've got a dedicated center channel, and apart from a little bit of bleed, we now have no dialogue. Just flipped it back. It's so hard to film this kind of thing, guys, and show you the sound, but it is what it is. I mean, you guys can tell that this older system is absolutely pucker, and I have full control at my fingertips of the speakers and what they're doing, and of course equalization. So let's take a listen.
Left, that's it. Good. Where are they?
As you guys can see, graphic equalizer working exactly how it's meant to. 12 band, so not ultimate control, but definitely very handy, but in my opinion not needed for this setup. I keep everything flat, and Hi-Fi VHS sounds stunning to me.
On the walls.
So as you guys can hopefully hear, it gets very freaking loud. Now my camera has a built-in compressor. Just in case you didn't hear that. So yeah, you won't be able to tell how loud it is, but basically it does get lovely and loud. Really nice and loud.
It's all that matters! No! No Morpheus, go! Trinity, go! Go!
Yeah, man. So that's about as loud as I'd want to push the system. I mean, that's uncomfortably loud in this room now. But it's got a lot of scope. And with some nice sounding rear speakers, I can really get an idea. I'll hopefully be able to get an idea of what it sounds like. So if anyone has any recommendations for similar era rear speakers, maybe Technics to these ones, then let me know. So there you have it, folks. A little bit of a demonstration of the older way of doing things. Now, just to finish off the video, we're going to chat a little bit about what's different between this setup and a modern setup. Now, as I was saying, if you guys aren't familiar with Dolby, it's definitely worth reading up on to see how they achieved what they achieved back in the day. You will not find any kind of analog VHS equipment or anything like that that will output discrete surround sound. It's just not supported. This is the way you do it. And these days we take discrete for granted. Even though we've got digital cables, so we don't see multiple cables and multiple streams of audio visually, with things like HDMI or Toslink or even SPDIF, coaxial or anything like that, we're talking 5, 6, 7, 8 channels of discrete audio at any given time. And it's just mind-blowing that we now have that in our homes these days. Now for that, you get proper separation of the channels. You get your rear left and right, you get your subwoofer on the 0.1, that's its own channel, everything is properly mixed. So as long as the person that mixed that film in Hollywood and knew what they were doing and it sounds great on the Blu-ray or on your DVD or on Netflix or whatever you're watching, you'll have lovely sound at home. But this, for what it is pure hands-on control of something that is left up to sort of chance, and something that works so tremendously well, even to someone's ears that are accustomed to discrete 5.1 surround. This is not discrete. This is old Dolby Pro-Logic, Dolby Surround. This is a phono cable, red and white cable that's giving me all of my surround sound here. But even this little consumer-grade Marantz SP50 is doing a stellar job of processing the signal and really pushing out the sound that these speakers need in order to make it sound as immersive as possible for this particular format. So that is that. That is how it works. That is how it would have worked back in the day. If anyone is ever curious, that is how it was. And maybe you had a simpler setup, maybe you had a more complicated setup. A lot of people could buy hi-fis if they had enough money, because this stuff was expensive back then. A lot of people could buy hi-fis that came as Dolby Surround or Dolby Pro-Logic compatible, and they came with a few extra speakers, so then all you'd have to do is jack your VCR straight into your hi-fi, and that sounded great. I mean, with this setup, it's actually built from the perspective of wanting to get surround out of your VHS machine. So that is where we stand there. But as you guys can see, damn man, this is cool. This is fun stuff to play around with. And I've been really enjoying myself with this, playing around with this today. And my machine, after running in a little bit, is not suffering from as much hi-fi fluttering as it originally was when I dug it out yesterday, ready for this. So if anyone has any questions about this stuff, please leave it down in the comment section below. I'll try my best to answer. And if you guys want to see this in the new house setup, and if you want me to make a dedicated video about how I'm going to set it up with the rear speakers and hopefully a center channel, which would be great, then let me know. And also, as a little bit of a teaser surprise, I'm going to have 2 sources that use this setup. Unfortunately, the second source isn't quite compatible with Dolby Pro-Logic. It's a little bit too old, but it is some form of VCR, and I have teased it. Well, I haven't teased it, I've shown it on the vlog channel quite a while ago now, back in October. But yeah, I've got another piece of kit that I want to show off very soon that'll be incorporated into this retro analog system. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this blast from the past. This is my Dolby Surround Pro-Logic setup with my Hi-Fi VHS VCR. I'm very happy with it. Hope you guys like it. Please send me recommendations for rear speakers if you know of any nice ones. And as always, I will see you in the next video.